All right. Welcome, everyone. Really glad to have you back with us. My name is David Carnes. I'm the founder and CEO of OpFocus. We're a Boston and Toronto-based consultancy helping SaaS companies with their revenue operations. Today at the Dashboard Dojo, we're going to talk about doing more with dashboards. So our agenda, I had sent out an email, and hopefully in the Zoom reminder was a link to setting up your dev org. I think I'd shared in the past and certainly shared over Twitter that I prefer to use an Einstein and analytics enabled dev org because it comes with thousands of records, which is more useful for training and practice. I also like it because it has the Trailhead Data Manager, and just it's good to have a separate environment to practice reporting. So we'll set, if you haven't done it already, I'll explain how to set up a dev org, and you can work on it while we get underway. We'll do a couple of poll questions. I'll share a little bit more about myself. We'll talk about the dojo, and then we'll get into Waza and Shiai. So different techniques related to dashboards, different features. I'll talk through them, and then let's do some hands-on exercises together. We do have one more dojo session scheduled for the end of the year. I'm working on getting somebody from the Salesforce report and dashboard team to join, and we'll look at features that have come out in the recent number of releases, and I'll figure out how many releases to go back, but also look forward to hearing some of the look ahead, what's coming on the roadmap. So we'll talk about some other OpFocus training and events, and we'll do some Q&A. Great. Okay, so one of the things that's really, really helpful is in doing a training like this is for everybody to have the same environment. So I don't want you to do these exercises in your production environment. Please don't do that. I've dropped into the chat a link to a page. If you haven't already done this, it'll take between 5 and 10 minutes. There are 3 steps. And to show you that page on the Dashboard Dojo website, there's a link. It's sort of hard to read because the color is green on a light blue background, my bad. But this page here will bring you to how to set up your Salesforce report and dashboard dev org. Again, I posted that to the chat here in the Zoom webinar. The link to this page, which has these 3 steps. So I want you to create a very special type of dev org, not a regular dev org, but this type. And I have a link to a bit.ly link for that. And then once you've set that up, so you fill out the form, it sends you an email, you click on it. Once you log into your dev org, I want you to run the Trailhead Data Manager. And that requires that you select the Trailhead Data Manager app through the app launcher, click on the Trailhead Data Manager tab, and then run the refresh the DTC data button. Just click on that. And it just moves the dates forward in a meaningful way. And then I have a private App Exchange app, very simple to install, and I've written out how to install that, just a couple of steps, and it has a few dashboards that we'll use today. So if you haven't done this yet, you can work on it now, and I'll keep talking, but hopefully you can catch up when we get to the hands-on part. And again, you could find those 3 steps under bit.ly, dojo_setup, or over in the chat, I've got the link to the same page. All right, great, let's get underway. All right, I like starting with questions. It's great to hear from you who's on the call. We've got two questions to start with. I'm curious if you've ever embedded a dashboard into a page. So this is one of the things that we can do very easily within Lightning. And if you want to just take a second, if you have ever embedded a dashboard into a page, and we can do it on 2 different types of pages in Lightning. We can do it on home pages and also on app pages. So it'd be great to see where everybody's at with taking advantage of that.
Keep it open for just another second or 2.
Thank you, Kyle.
All right.
All right, so it looks like we're just under half yes, just over half no, and a couple not sure. Fantastic. And so for those of you that haven't done it or aren't sure, this is a really great way to just get more out of your investment in dashboards. I'll talk a little bit more about it later, but Basically, if you have filters, if you have buttons, if it's dynamic, all of that gets pulled through when you display it either on a home page or on another type of page in Lightning called an app page. The second topic, I thought, I haven't actually scheduled something after the December session, so I'm really curious what you might like, and I picked a couple that I might start the year with, but thought to see, what your preference would be for a next topic. So governance is one, just general best practices. Since we're at the end of the year, maybe doing a look back, some special kind of reporting to do win-loss analysis, stuff like that. So analyzing 2020 outcomes. Some of you are part of organizations that account-based marketing and target accounts is important, so we might focus on that. One of the folks on my team yesterday was asking a question about joined reports, and I thought maybe that would be a good topic. And certainly, if you have other ideas or feedback, what I'd love to shift into in early 2021 is just like taking a topic like marketing, or as we say here, marketing, and just taking that topic and going deep on reporting for that, or for sales, or for customer success, or for service and support. So great, look forward to seeing what people come up with. All right. So deep dive on joined reports is the winner. Great. So one of the changes that happened in the last year and a half that was kind of a quiet change, is really important for joined reports, is that we can reuse the same report type over and over. So it totally changes what we can do with joined reports, in that you could create a report on campaigns, and let's say you have a report on worldwide campaign results, and then have another report on campaigns, and maybe it's North American campaigns, and maybe have another report on campaigns, and maybe it's EMEA campaigns, or Europe, Middle East, and Africa campaigns, and you can use the same report type over and over. And that was a very quiet change in the last year and a half, but it really has significant impact on how we might structure information and do it in a side-by-side way. So I think that's great. Thank you for the feedback there. Why don't we dive right in? So I shared, my name is David Carnes. My organization, OpFocus, we spend a lot of time eating, sleeping, breathing on the Salesforce platform. We're in our 15th year. I'm very proud to be a Lightning champion, and sort of a long-time teacher on the platform. Where the dojo came from, I was a tour guide in Japan years and years ago. I lived in Japan for almost 3 years. I was a student and just loved it. Anyhow, why don't we keep going? So for those of you that have joined the dojo before, the idea, the word dojo is the place to learn the way. And I love the discipline, and I love the idea of people of all skill levels learning together. So this is where the idea of the dojo came from. The word waza is techniques, and what we're going to do for techniques today, we'll talk about dashboard permissions, which I always seem to start with permissions. I'm sorry if it gets repetitive, but it's so important. If you are not a sysadmin in your Salesforce system, having the right permissions is critical for you to be able to do the stuff that we're going to do today. We'll talk about documenting dashboards. We'll talk about adding a splash of color. We'll talk about dashboard components. So there are 11 types of components that are available to us when we create a dashboard in Lightning. There is a 12th component, which is a legacy table, which if you still have an old classic table, you might still see that. We'll talk about Lightning tables, which are amazing, super powerful. They're so much more powerful than you'd think they are. We'll talk about additional measures, two-column sorting, sizing your components, which is all important. It's just an important thing. We'll talk about dynamic dashboards, filters, and embedded analytics. So these are our topics for today. And the ones in red are ones that we'll do hands-on exercises related to. So the first topic, dashboard permissions. If you are not an admin, please note that only 4 out of 31 report and dashboard permissions are set by default. So if you're not an admin, I strongly recommend taking a look at a blog article I wrote a year ago. You can see the link here, bit.ly report_permissions. And it's a Salesforce admin blog article, and just making suggestions on what a super user, a report and dashboard super user might benefit from. So you can see here over on the right, a screenshot from a profile, and the ability to subscribe to dashboards isn't enabled by default. Now, for any of you that have joined late, if you have not set up your practice environment, so it's a special dev org. It's an Einstein Analytics dev org, and it has thousands of records in it, so it's useful. I put into the chat a link to this setup page to set up your hands-on. If you want to do the hands-on exercises with us, there are 3 steps, and I've listed it out here on the Dashboard Dojo. So it'll probably be another 10 minutes before we get to doing the hands-on. Just wanted to remind you that that's available. All right, so before we dive in, I do want to remind you that, especially if you're new to an organization, I would encourage you to take the time to document what's in your system. Most of us have old piles of moldy, unused dashboards just laying around because nobody actually documented them and thought to delete them or archive them. So to compile a list of dashboards, what we can do is we can create a custom report type, and you can see up here in the top right, under Setup, Feature Settings, Reports and Dashboards. So sorry, Setup, Feature Settings, Analytics, Reports and Dashboards, Report Types. We can see a list of report types here, and I created one on dashboards. Once you create a report type on dashboards, then you can report on the dashboards in your system. And you can even go one step further. You can create dashboards and their components if you wanted to document the components on all your dashboards. I think a good first step is to just create a list of all your dashboards. But what you might do with that is create a report. You can see an example here of a report. You see title, created, last modified, etc. You might export that to Excel and then add some columns such as who owns this dashboard? What's the purpose of it? If you can't identify an owner or the purpose, it's probably not being used, and it might be a candidate to be archived. And you might create a hidden folder and go ahead and archive the dashboard. I find this is a really nice place to start. Just create that report, export the list to Excel, and then you have the last run date of all these before you go blundering and looking at them all and overwriting some of these last modified dates and whatnot. We can also use the data loader to export a list of dashboards, and there are slightly different columns available, which is kind of interesting. Similarly, we can use the Workbench, which is a browser-based data loading tool that Salesforce offers, not as well known, but you could log into your system from the Workbench and you could export a list of your dashboards. So you've got some nice options for just documenting what is the starting set of stuff that I have. Now, talking about what we can do with dashboards, one of the first things I noticed when this was introduced in Lightning is that we can add color, and we should add color. We had some kind of very basic ways, rudimentary ways of adding color back in Classic, but we have 2 things we can do with Lightning. We can have an entirely dark theme, an entirely light theme. We can also take advantage of 14 color palettes that are available to us. You can see the same 2 components above each other over here on the right, and a dark theme dashboard with watermelon color palette on the top, and the exact same 2 components below. We have a light theme with, I think it's fire color palette. And this might be meaningful in just how you present the information, the mood in the room, the tone of the meeting. You might want to try to make things pop. One other thing to share is that once you've chosen, let's say I choose an entirely dark theme for my dashboard, at the component level, each component can be light or dark as well. So that's one other option. The ability to make these changes, if you are not a sysadmin, you need to have a checkbox checked on your profile to allow you to change dashboard colors. And that's in that blog article that I shared. All right, so that's adding a splash of color. I mentioned that there are 11 types of components before. So each of these is sourced by a report. Back in Classic, we had a couple of other options for sourcing dashboards. You could actually embed a Visualforce page on a Classic dashboard. So we don't have that ability in Lightning. Each of these things is sourced by a report. And then each of these 11 types of components has its own properties. So you want to, when you select the one of these 11 components, when you're creating your dashboard, take a look down through. Some of the default settings are kind of annoying. So for a funnel over here on the right, one of the default settings is that it combines smaller groups into an other category, which when we're talking about a sales funnel, that never ever makes sense. Like 0% of the time would you want to combine the qualification stage and negotiation stage in the same thing. So it's sort of a terrible. The other thing that's odd about the funnel component is that it defaults to 6. Most of us have 6 or more stages in our sales process, and you can see here the example: 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7, so even Salesforce's own example, the standard set of sales stages doesn't fit into a funnel. So you want to take a good look at the properties. There might be some default settings you want to flip. There might also be some things you might take advantage of to make the information displayed better. We also, when you create a component, when you add a component to a dashboard, you have the ability to use the chart settings from the report. Now, this is grayed out in this example, and I know why, because the underlying report must not have a chart. So if you don't add a chart to your report, you can't take advantage of that. But there are some cases where if you get it exactly right on the report, why not just pull that exact chart through and display that on the dashboard? Interestingly, that's the only way to create a scatter. You have to create the scatter on your underlying report, and then you use that chart settings. So it's the only way to pull that through. Just like in Classic, we have the ability to have up to 20 components per dashboard. And you can see some of them here. So a donut is just a pie chart with the grand total in the middle. The funnel we talked about, typically used for opportunity stages. The gauge just shows the grand total and gives you that red, yellow, green striations. Note that you can choose from millions of colors. It doesn't have to be red, yellow, green. Similarly with the metric over here, that's a grand total as well. And you do have conditional highlighting options on the metric as well. So we'll talk about some of these different types of components, and they do have special options, and it's worth taking a look at. So one that I think you should all become really well versed in is lightning tables. Totally worth your time learning about these. These are very, very special. So unlike all the rest, unlike the other 10 types of components, which are totally based on the report that you created. So let's say you create a report and it has 6 columns. That's it. Those are the 6 columns you can use for those other 10 types of dashboard components. For a lightning table, it says, look, it's wonderful that you set up a report, but I'm going to actually go to the underlying report type. So a lightning table is based on the report type, and you might have access to 1,000 columns potentially, because just whatever's part of that report type, which would be the fields on the objects that are part of that report type. So that makes this very special, and it makes the ability that you can use the same report over and over. And if you use it with a lightning table, maybe you're showing very different data than is actually in the report. Different columns, different measures, and so on. So a lightning table can display individual records, up to 200 rows. Or you can display groups, and you have the ability to do the grouping and add the columns directly in the dashboard component. So I have the ability here in this middle screenshot, I have the ability to add measures, I have the ability to add groups. If this was an ungrouped lightning table, I could add columns. So we can display up to 10 columns, which is pretty amazing. We can show a total. That's further down here. You can see the checkbox checked on the lightning table properties. We can also add conditional highlighting, which is another way to make the information pop on your dashboard. One of the other nice things that we can do with this that we can't do with other types of lightning reports that are created in Lightning is the ability to do a top 10 list or a top 7 list. And that's in something called the max groups displayed. So we'll actually do that together in a few minutes. That's a lightning table. We have the ability to have additional measures on dashboards. This requires the same data type. So in OpFocus, so within our business, we have a custom object called projects. On the project object, we have quite a lot of currency fields. So fields of data type currency for what's the total amount of the project, what's the amount worked on the project, is there a change on the project? And these are all different dollar amounts on our project objects. So if I had them on the underlying report summed up, I could actually add additional measures. So as long as it's the same data type, and this is available for horizontal bars, vertical bars, and for line charts. And you can see an example here. The top screenshot, I've clicked the plus measure on this vertical bar chart. And then for that measure, I've added the average amount, and I've plotted it as a line chart. And you can see the line overlaying here. And we can add an additional axis on the right if you'd like. So this is a really nice way of getting more out of a single chart. When I look over people's shoulders when they're first creating dashboards, I'll often see people create, a dashboard with the sum of the amounts and a dashboard component with the sum of the amount, and then another chart right next to it with the average amount. And I think, gosh, those are awfully similar. Can we just put them onto the same chart and get more, squeeze more value out of that chart? So that's adding additional measures. Two-level sorting has been a really nice addition in Lightning, and these are available on bar, line, and scatter charts, and also Lightning tables. The groups or measures have to be visible, and if they are visible, then we can essentially sort twice. So here's my example here. I've got I'm sorting alphabetically on lead owner, and then I'm sorting on lead status. And this has the lead status is kind of the opposite way. I usually think left to right as far as the progression of my lead statuses. So what I might do in this case is actually make it more of a leaderboard. And we'll do a very similar example in a minute, but basically you can sort by the record count, and then you can see this guy, David, has the majority of the leads, and then Billy is second. And I've also then sorted by lead status. So this is a really nice way of, kind of getting it right. It's like hanging a picture on the wall, and sort of, if it doesn't look right, just spend a little bit of time on the properties, and you might be able to make the information make more sense, be more sort of accessible to somebody. To me, having the earlier stage in the process either be to the left, that makes more sense to me than the other way around. When I look at this, it sort of feels like it's out of order. All right, so that's two-level sorting. Component sizing. Please do not accept the default size of components. When you go to create a dashboard, Salesforce adds components onto as you're adding. It's just going to put a size, and it's a standard size, and it's sort of one size fits all. Please take a moment and leverage the snap to grid sizing that comes with the dashboard. So the dashboards now in Lightning, we have 12 columns. So there's a really nice control precision over the sizing of our components. If you hover over the bottom of a component, you see a gray scroll bar, or if you hover over the right side and you see a gray scroll bar, then information is off the page. And you can see the example here. Just by hovering, I can tell that the information's off the page. And just by stretching it out a little bit to the right, I can see more of that information. I can make a decision, do I want to see all this? Okay. So you might also consider making it a top 10 list or something and use the max groups displayed setting. Great. All right. I'm ready. I hope you guys are ready. Let's get in and do some hands-on stuff together. So what we're going to do is in our dev orgs, if you have gone through all three steps, if you have set up your dev org with one of these Einstein-enabled orgs, if you've run the Trailhead Data Manager, and if you've done the third step of installing the simple little app, which has two dashboards in it, what we're going to do is we're going to take the Play dashboard, and we're going to save as. We're essentially going to clone it, and we're going to make some changes to it to make the information appear differently. So one of the things we're going to do is, I find this hard to look at. It's not really giving me what I want, this open ops by industry and stage. So we're going to change the orientation of it, and we're going to sort it differently and make it more of a top list. And we'll also change the sizing of it. You can see here that normally we call this white space, but it's black space here. There's a ton of extra space here. We don't need the funnel to be so wide. We'll make that narrow, make a couple of other changes, and then we're going to add some columns, and we're going to make this top 10 list instead of just a dump of opportunities. So you can see what we're going to end up with here on below. And this is the list of things that I'd like you to do. So I'd like you to go find the Play dashboard, and I want you to clone it. So this is a nice best practice for you. If somebody created a dashboard and you think it needs some work, why not just clone it before you hack up somebody else's dashboard or hack up your own dashboard, especially if it's already being used. Go ahead and save as. And so you can see here, I've taken this Play dashboard and I've called it ZZZ Play. I've just saved it as, and I work on that. So just to show you that one step, and then I'll come back and go through the list of items. So back in your dev org, if you are looking at the play dashboard, so if you go to the dashboard tab in your org and click on all dashboards, you can see the play dashboard. And what I'm suggesting is rather than hack this one up, why not just create a copy of it and hack the copy up? So this might be a best practice for your own org. So if you go to the down arrow, the action pull down up to the right of your dashboard and select Save As, and why don't we, let's call this one, I don't know, how about a play dashboard, whatever you want to call it, just call it something else. Then you have 2 copies of it, and we're going to hack this one up. So what I want you to do is adjust the colors. So the way to adjust the colors is to edit the dashboard and then click on the gear. So please pick a color and theme. And then I want you to make adjustments to the top 3 components on the dashboard. So the top left component, I want you to make it a horizontal stacked bar. I want you to sort by the sum of the amounts descending, and you do that right within the properties. So to get started on this, what you're going to do is when you look at your cloned dashboard, click Edit, and then click on the gear to change the colors and the theme if you wish. Save that. And then I'd like you to make changes to the top 3 components, and I've listed out the changes I'd like you to make, and we can review those together. Kyle, are there some questions that have come in?
Yes, one question came in from Kristen. So with sizing, do I need to consider monitor sizes? Mine is large, but sales has a smaller laptop. I want to make sure they don't have to scroll.
Yes, I think it's a really good point. Now, I believe Salesforce, like a lot of websites now, is responsive, so it's it's going to resize itself, but that may make information hard to read. I do think it's important to consider, and just double check on the type of device. So if somebody's going to be using their phone, it is responsive, so the information should scale. But real estate is always a consideration in reporting.
And
all right, so if you've just joined us, we're doing a hands-on exercise right now. I'd like you to clone the play dashboard. So go to it and save as, and then make these adjustments. So I'd like you to change the top 3 components. And we can talk about these changes. Go ahead, Kyle.
Ella asked, where can she get these dashboards?
So in the chat window, the top thing in the chat window is the link to how to install these dashboards. It's a private App Exchange app that I created for stuff like this. Any others, Kyle?
No, just a lot of people commenting on how this is exactly the information they're looking for, and they're excited to take part in it.
Oh, good. Okay, glad everyone's here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tinker with my windows a little bit. So this is going to make our windows smaller, but why don't we do that just so I can do it along with you? So hopefully you can still see the requirements and see some semblance of a dashboard over on the right. You can see how it's resizing itself. It looks a little silly, but I might zoom that out a little bit. There we go. Okay, so basically to change the colors, we click on Edit on the dashboard. So you've cloned the dashboard, saving it as something else. And then to change, we'll use the gear icon. Now, remember, back in your own Salesforce instance, if you're not a sysadmin, you need to be given permission to change and it's a profile setting, to change the dashboard to light and maybe make it nightfall or something that's, so these are quite different. I really like dark with watermelon, that's just me. But so for our top left component, what we said we wanted to do was make this a horizontal stacked bar. So if I click on the pencil, you can see my 11 choices of components, and I'm going to make this a horizontal stack bar. And even still, that's kind of hard to see, and information is going to be off the page. So I'm going to do two things here. I like to show the whole unit, full number. I like to have 0 decimal places. I like to just take that away from Salesforce, that choice, not have it be automatic. And then what I might do is change the sort from industry to amount. And then you have a little control with an up arrow and a down arrow. We want to make it descending. So we want our top industries on the top of the list. So again, we edited the component by clicking on the pencil. And then we changed it to a horizontal stacked bar. I changed the display unit to full numbers. It's not actually showing the numbers. There's a little too much going on this one. I changed the decimals to 0, not that important. But then what's important here is to make the sort by sum of the amounts. Notice that we have other choices here. We could put the legend on the bottom. A lot of times I do like to put the legend on the bottom. It takes up real estate on the right. I have the ability to make this one component dark if I wish. I can flip the light dark setting down at the bottom. I have the ability to add a header, subtitle, and footer. Now, interestingly, these are different lengths. I want to say the title could be 80 characters, the subtitle 40 characters, and the footer 255 characters, which, is sort of a weird thing to keep in my head. They get truncated if the component isn't big enough, so it's another consideration. So once we've made those couple of changes, what we might do is now drag this a couple of rows taller so that we see the information displayed. And oops. The other couple changes were to resize the funnel, and kind of an interesting thing happens when you resize the funnel. You realize that it doesn't need to be so wide. So if I make it one section narrower, it's the same size funnel, and this one is probably going to get smaller. Okay, it did here because it's the window's squished, but normally that doesn't actually make the funnel any smaller. And what we might do in this one on the right is actually, while we're here, just make this twice as wide, or make this wider, and then we're going to go add more columns. Before we move away from the funnel, what I said here is let's edit the properties. So we'll go right into the pencil, and we might show the percentages. Please note that the combine small groups into others is set by default, which is not a good thing for opportunity stages. And similarly, the max values displayed, the default is 6, and that's not a good thing for opportunity stages either, for most of us that have more than 6 stages. So I'll click Update. On the table, we said we're going to add the stage and close date column. So again, we'll just click on the pencil, and we'll just, in the columns, just go ahead and search for close date, and we'll search for stage. You can move these up and down if you want. So I might move amount down. It's just drag and drop. So if I want to put that below, oh, that didn't work. There we go. We might sort this by the amount and maybe make it descending. So, and then essentially we're going to be creating a top 10 list. If I'm doing a top 10 list, I could show the total, I could show conditional highlighting. I probably don't want decimals, make that 0. And maybe I make this a top 10 list and show max groups displayed 10. And then maybe we do top 10 open ops, and I'll get rid of the words by industry and stage. Click Update, and I'm going to go ahead and save this work and click Done, and we'll see our work here. We're seeing a top 10 list. Now, this isn't really the top 10 list because I didn't make the thing taller. So I'd probably go back and make it taller if I truly want this to be a top 10 list. And this is the kind of, back and forth. Think of it like setting up a room and hanging pictures around a room. You don't always get it right the first time. I just keep tinkering, saving. Okay, so it probably doesn't need to be quite this tall. So maybe I make it a little bit shorter to get 10 in there. Maybe something like that, because I have a total row. Great. All right. So we've got a couple more topics. I'll make this bigger again. So, and I'd be curious for feedback on how you guys did with the hands-on, because I like the idea of having hands-on, but clearly we all have to be set up in advance, and there's a lot that has to happen to be able to do this virtually. So if either in the chat or if you want to send me an email or hit me on LinkedIn or Twitter. I'm happy to take your feedback on the hands-on. So dynamic dashboards is absolutely a tool that should be in your arsenal for working with dashboards. In Enterprise Edition, you can have up to 5 of them. And what we're essentially doing is allowing a user to set the running user when they're looking at the dashboard. And the way that you see that, you can know if one of your dashboards is dynamic, but you see the change link here next to that dashboard. So this allows the person who's viewing, if they have permission, to click that change link and change the running user. And you need to train them on this, right? I think this is a nice example for like a my dashboard. So you might have a sales team and have like my one deals this month, my one deals this quarter, my open pipeline, my recent activity, whatever, and all the underlying reports are my. And you changing the running user will change the context of, from Laura to Billy on the sales team to Sally on the sales team. And for a manager, that's fantastic to be able to use the same dashboard and look at it across different folks on the team. So Kyle, it seems like all the questions are coming in through Q&A today as opposed to the chat. Any others that have come in that are relevant to this?
Yeah, will Salesforce give us more dynamic dashboards if we ask? Like, do they?
I think you can. I think you can buy more. I think so. Unlimited edition, I think, comes with 10, and I think that is one of those weird SKUs that you can buy more. I think. So somebody can contradict me, and maybe if somebody from Salesforce is on the call, they'll know the answer to it. All right. Another way to get a lot of power out of your dashboards is with filters. I waited years before I used these, and I was kind of like, I can't believe I waited so long. So if you've created a great dashboard for a team, why not add a little extra value? Go that one extra yard, and you can get so much more value out of the dashboard. We can have up to 3 filters per dashboard. We can display the name, an operator, and up to 50 values within the filter. And you can see over here on the right, I'm adding a filter on billing country. And I've changed the display name to just show country because we don't need that extra word billing. It's not meaningful in this case. And you can see I've started adding values, and the values could be individual countries, or I added an example here for Benelux, which is Belgium, Netherlands, and Luxembourg. And when you add that filter value, you can give it the display name of Benelux, and then you could have the 3 country values separated by 2 commas to take advantage of that as a multiple, and it would be Belgium or Netherlands or Luxembourg. So you can see here when you add this, it just appears as a pull down. Now, a couple of interesting things happen when you use this. If you click away and click back to the dashboard, it remembers the filters that you've used. If you have more than 1 filter, so you can have up to 3, if you've intersected with 2 filters, it literally is the intersection. So if we did Benelux and the industry, if we had another filter on industry, it's the intersection of those 2. So this is really where this becomes powerful. So filters do not work with joined reports. They don't work with bucket fields. They don't work with summary formulas, but that's okay. That's okay. Probably the other thing that's important to know is that if you create a dashboard and you have lead data and case data and opportunity data and account data and some other data on there, it's probably not a good choice to be filtered unless they have a common element, like the filter is based on something related to accounts. But even that example, lead data isn't going to work because it has nothing to do with account fields. So when you go to create a filter on a dashboard, the components that are on that dashboard are going to limit the choice of fields that you have. It's to some common set of fields. So that's an important thing to know. It gets confusing. You create a nice, easy example where it's all opportunity components on a dashboard. You go to add a filter and you've got access to all the opportunity fields and all the account fields. Well, if you add a lead component onto the same dashboard, your list of fields drops dramatically that are available for the filtering. All right, so let's go do our second exercise. We're going to add a filter for country, and we'll do this one together. And we're going to add the 4 Canada, China, US, and then we're going to add a 4th choice of Oceania. I don't even know how to say it. I've been to both of these countries and love both of them. Australia, New Zealand. How do you say this, Kyle? I feel like I'm trying to over dramatize Oceania. Oceania.
Yeah, I think Oceania.
Okay,
I think it's
thank
correct.
you. I need to put it in a Boston accent. And then we're going to add a second filter. And this is another thing I encourage you to do, which is to use close dates, especially on a dashboard related to opportunities. So let's say you're doing fundraising and you have fundraising opportunities in your nonprofit org, and you want to see, what donations are expected to come in this month versus next month. We can add a filter on the close date. So we'll do that example. So I'm going to make my window big again. And you know what, we might as well just use the same dashboard. So I'm already here, so we can just go ahead and use the same dashboard. If I go ahead and click plus filter, so while you're editing a dashboard, if you click plus filter, you can add your first filter, and this is the list of fields available. So this is giving me most of the opportunity and account fields because these are all opportunity related components on this one dashboard. So the first one we're going to choose is country. Once you've chosen the field name, I can make this bigger if it's helpful to people. Once you've chosen the field name, you can change the display name, call it what you want. And then you need to add values. So you can add up to 50 values. So let's go ahead and add Canada. And notice that we do have an operator here. We can do equals, not equals, less than, greater than, contains, starts, between. So some of these bottom ones that are they're below the fold are actually really interesting for filtering to be able to look for something that contains. And I'm going to show that as display text Canada. So we'll add the second one. I think it was China. Add that. What did we say on our example? USA for the third one. Now, clearly you need to know your data. If your data is US, USA, United States, U period, A period, S, what you may need to do in the value is put a comma in here. If you're not clear on how, your data, you could actually do this, America, to just give you the most options. So you can write a little bit in there. It's probably 255 characters, but maybe the display text, I leave it just USA. And then to add that combined one, so we'll say the operator equals New Zealand, comma, Australia. And again, we're going to call that Oceania. All right, so that's the billing code. That's it. That's it, guys. So to add filters, like let's say that these are your 3 biggest markets. Why not add a filter for that on the dashboards just so you can zero in? So when I click add and I click save and I click done, I can use this immediately. So let's go ahead and do that. And just to take a look at it, if I go ahead and run this on Canada, it's just looking at Canada data, which is great. So it reruns everything and it'll remember. If I click away and click back, it remembers. So let's look at Oceania. All right. Now, what I want you to do is the second part of the exercise. Why don't you try to add the filter on the close date? And you can see the example I have here. So edit the same dashboard, click edit, go to the filter, add filter. So we're adding a second filter. And you're going to choose the field close date, and you can just leave the display name close date. And then we're going to use relative values for this month, next month, and this year. Let's just try those 3. Remember, you can have 50 values. So we're going to add 3 separate filter values, this month, next month, and this year. Let's give that a shot. So Bruce asked the question, for filters, do all the report types in the dashboard have to use the same report type? Great question, Bruce. The answer is no, but a similar, having similar data makes life easier, because if you have a lead, if I had a lead component on this dashboard, it's sort of like, you have less options for your filtering when you start to mix the data. It's more like mixing the objects. Ooh, Sherry shared that you have unlimited edition, you only have 5. I wonder if it's performance edition. So this is where, thank you for sharing that, Sherry. This is where there is a limits page in help, and I'm just going to jump over and look for that because this is the kind of stuff I'm interested in because I hate misspeaking. So if we go additions and limits, and now it's called Salesforce Features and Addition Allocations. This page has been renamed more times over the years. So on this page, the Salesforce Features and Additions Allocations, it'll list how many dynamic dashboards. And let's see if we can find it quickly. Of course, I went right by dynamic. Okay, so what I'm going to need to do is go all the way to the bottom and open this in a new tab and then search on the word dynamic. All right, so I'm curious how you guys did adding the second filter. So I'll just do it here. If I go ahead and edit the dashboard and click plus filter, do this on close date, and I'm going to add my first filter value. The key here is to make it relative. So relative dates, if you search in help on relative dates, there's a really long list of these words: this month, next month, this week, this quarter, last quarter, next 5 quarters, last 2 weeks. You've got all these nice options to choose from. So this is really quick. I'll just add next month. I tend to write them in caps. I don't know why I started doing that, but and we said this year. It's not funny that I tend to always write these things in caps. So it looks like the displays will pull that through this month. So if you want it in all caps, go ahead and write it in all caps. So if I save the dashboard now and click done, it reloads and we can see our second filter. So if I look at this month, we'll see how much, the data should get smaller. These are deals. And you might have different data if you didn't do the Trailhead Data Manager step. The dates in your dev org are in the year 2024, 2025. That's why that second step in the setup is so important. To go up here and to run the Trailhead Data Manager so that your dates look like my dates. But if I go ahead and say this month in Canada, the amount of data should be very, very small. You see that the numbers are changing. We're down to 18 million in open opportunities. All right, guys, I hope you're really excited about that and about the next thing we'll talk about, which is embedding dashboards into page layouts. So we have the ability to embed dashboards into home pages and into app pages. However, we can't do it into record pages, and sort of off the, so not speaking officially, I think the reason is that would essentially compete with Einstein Analytics. If you could open an account and see, what's the sales activity, what's the cases and stuff, and you just could see that visually. We can do it with individual report charts on an account layout or an opportunity layout. You can embed report charts, but not an entire dashboard. We can do that on a home page or on an app page. When you do this, it's very straightforward. You have to first create the page. So if you're not a sysadmin, you'll need a sysadmin to create the page for you. And then what you do when you're creating the page, you use something called the Lightning App Builder, and you drag a dashboard component. You can see here from the list of Lightning components, if you drag the dashboard component, it'll actually show you the last one you were working on, and you can change it, and there are a couple of properties. Now, when you embed the dashboard, these buttons work. So this is an actual screenshot of a home page. The open button works, the refresh button works, the change. If you have filters, those work too. So it's pretty great. The other thing you can do, and as we can do with all Lightning components, is you can take advantage of the dynamic visibility and say, only show this if the person's profile is, sales director, so that they see that dashboard. And you can embed multiple dashboards in the same homepage and essentially assign out one dashboard or another based on profile or based on somebody's name. We can use that thing called dynamic visibility. So why don't we do that one together? I've just got a simple exercise here to actually create a home page, and just given the time where we're at, we'll just do this one together. So in setup, we're going to open the Lightning App Builder. We're going to create a new home page called Home. We're going to select the template header with 3 regions, and then we're just going to drag a few things onto the page to create the page. So let's do that together back in our system. So we're going to click on Setup in our system. Now, if you're not normally an admin, this might be sort of an overwhelming place to come visit. But just for this moment, let's put on our admin hat. And what we're going to do is under setup, we're going to expand user interface. And we're going to go to Lightning App Builder. If you're not familiar with setup, you can also just type in the quick find App Builder with a space between app and builder, or if you just type in Lightning, Lightning may not give it too small of a list, but anyway, Lightning App Builder, this is where we are. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a new homepage. So again, we're under Setup, Lightning App Builder, and we're going to create a new homepage. So we'll click on the New button. You have 3 types of pages you can create in Lightning: app pages, home pages, and record pages. This time we're going to create a home page. So let's go ahead and click Next. Let's call it Home. So we're creating a home page in the Lightning App Builder under Setup, and we're going to call it Home. Now there are 2 choices of templates. We can ask a developer to create custom templates for us, but our 2 choices are header in 3 regions or standard. Standard is what we had when Lightning was first introduced. This was the only choice. There was one choice. And the problem with it was there was no good place to put a dashboard. If you have old Lightning homepages, please consider switching the template, because your dashboards were squished in these old templates, the standard homepage template. Let's use header in 3 regions. And the reason is the top section is full width, and that works nicely for a dashboard. So I'm going to go ahead and click Finish after I choose header in 3 regions. And then now it's a drag and drop exercise. And with each thing we drag onto the Lightning App Builder, we're going to update the properties over on the right. So the first thing we're going to do is drag and drop the dashboard. So on the left-hand side, we have this component. So it's kind of left to right action. I'm dragging the dashboard. Now, Salesforce is smart enough to show me the one that I was just working on. So for you guys, if you were just working on it, you're going to see the same thing I am. Now, over on the right, there are a couple of settings, and each time you add something to a Lightning page, you want to actually just go over to the right and adjust the properties. So these properties are the name of the dashboard. You can actually change the name. So I'm going to call this the Kick Butt Sales Spectacular. I'm obviously having fun. I don't have to call it. No, I can't. I can't change that name. Why are they letting me type? Oh, that's too bad. Okay, so that didn't work. Don't do that. That's great. So they let me type, but it's more of a search tool. I thought that was something new. The max height, I just ignore it. You're going to make a mistake if you set the max height. It's set in pixels, and you're going to truncate your dashboard if you set a max height. I just leave it alone. The hide on error, that totally makes sense to me. And this is where this component visibility, this is where you could say, only show this if the person's profile is, sales executive or something. So you can add essentially a filter under component visibility. You could do this and add multiple dashboards and have one go to this group and one dashboard go to that group. So we might just throw a couple more things onto our page, and then we'll make our page live. Let's add a today's events on the left, and let's add the assistant. Let's throw that on the right, and maybe we put a list view in the middle. These are just components, things that you might put on a page. Don't worry about it if you didn't do this. The main thing is to get the dashboard and to go look at it. And again, with each one of these, like this list view one, you're probably going to want to go, when you add that component to the page, go over to the properties, and we might make this to, the opportunity object, and maybe it's my opportunities. And note that the default number of records is 3. That's not very many. Maybe I want to show 10. And there are some other controls. Each thing you add to a page in Lightning, there are controls in the properties on the right. Now, it's 2 steps to save this. Let's click on the Save button. Once you click the Save button, you're asked, do you want to activate the page? If you want to see your work live, yes. If you have mistakenly been doing all these exercises in production, please don't do this next step. But what we're going to do is activate. So if you're in a dev org and you know you're in a dev org for this exercise, go ahead and activate. And there's one step. This page looks a little mysterious, but the only thing we need to do is assign as org default on the left. So once we click assign as org default and click save, this page will now be live as our home page with the dashboard in it. So to go view that, I'm going to go back to the front end of the system, and I still have a tab open to the front end of the system. What I'll do is I'll click on the home page and look at that, it's already appeared. Now in your case, if it doesn't appear, you just need to reload the page usually, or you forgot to do the activation step. But in my case, just by reloading the page, clicking on the home tab, it brought me here and you can see the dashboard in all its glory embedded. All right, so hopefully that worked well for you guys. Just as a quick recap, we talked about permissions, we talked about documenting our dashboards, we talked about adding a splash of color, we talked about some of the 11 components, including lightning tables, we talked about measures and sorting and sizing. We spent a few minutes on dynamic dashboards, played with dashboard filters, and then finally with embedded analytics. We do have another poll question if you guys are still have a minute to, if Kyle will launch that. I'll also mention on December 2nd at 1 o'clock, so if you want to go ahead and load that, Kyle. At 1 o'clock on December 2nd, if you want to join us again, we'll do what's new in Salesforce reporting, and I'm working on the special guest. But is there anything from today that you're most excited to go try out? Lightning tables, dynamic dashboards, dashboard filters. What are you going to try out in your own org?
Give it a couple more seconds here.
Huh. I just realized that, oh, there it goes. I was going to say the Q&A window I couldn't open. For Bill Hare's question, dynamic dashboards don't need common data. That's correct. It's from the running user's perspective. So Bill, you asked that a little while ago. Okay, and Alexandra asked about component visibility. So we'll look at that in 1 second. Lightning tables. All right, guys, lightning tables are amazing, totally worth it. Looks like we had a pretty good spread across dynamic dashboards and dashboard filters. Alexander asked the question about just taking a look at how do we the component visibility. So let's do that as an example. This is so powerful. This one thing will help you across all your page creation. Every page, every component, you can make it dynamically visible. So I've come right back into the Lightning App Builder. I've clicked on the component that I want to make dynamic. And if you click Add Filter, it's as easy as saying, select the field, and your fields are, like profile name, the user, if the user's name is Bob. So, but maybe I'll do the user and we'll do profile name. So what profile? This is a really common example. And I'll say done. And then if the profile contains, why don't I say executive? So the profile contains executive, show this, otherwise don't. And you can see this is now, as soon as I click save, that'll be live. And you see the little orange thing here, that's telling me that it has some kind of a dynamic filter. So if I do this and I go back and reload the homepage, it'll be gone because I don't have that in my, so once that's saved and I come back here and I reload this, I will no longer be able to see it because of how the dynamic component visibility. So my dashboard just poof, went away. So somebody asked the question about receiving the recording. So the recordings are always available on the Dashboard Dojo. We're not sending out links to everybody individually. If you go to dashboarddojo.com, there's the resources page, and I have all the recordings that I've done, including for other events, in case that's helpful to you. All right. Looks like I'll see if there's any other question in there. When I add filters on a dashboard, I see them as options on individual components, but they don't seem to work. Oh, interesting. So that is something with dashboards that there is the ability to do individual filters. So if I've got filters, you see here the little filter icons, and there is the way to like override. This is where having similar data types, similar data objects on the same dashboard sort of makes the dashboard work better. But something that Salesforce added to this is the ability to swap out. So this is being filtered on country and close date. And if I click on this filter, I can't swap out country, but I could swap out close date and essentially change the pipes. I haven't done a lot with that. I don't really know why Salesforce added that. There must have been some customer that wanted it. All right. Okay, well, I guess we've hit the top of the hour, guys. I hope you join us on the next Dashboard Dojo. Also, we've got training coming up tomorrow and the next day, reporting workshop, and we have an event coming up on the 18th for planning out your end-of-year operations, some do's and don'ts. That's on our website, and hopefully we'll see you at the next dojo. So thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you, everyone.